receptors, encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Testimonial Monday, and our pink. We are live on just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, Rizal and I discussed awareness does not equal action. You can head on over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, once you choose hope, anything is possible. We are so grateful for our sponsor on today. We have Pastor Michael Richardson with the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emmanuel Kojic at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emmanuel Kojic-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson. And we're from the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
If you are tuned in on any form of social media, like the show, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. My special guest today lives in Decatur, Georgia. She is the CEO of the firm A&L Risk Advisory Service, where she provides IT consulting services to organizations. She is dedicated to increasing awareness of breast cancer, especially for triple-negative breast cancer. Her prayer is that more younger women and men be aware of their breast cancer risk factors to potentially reduce their chances of being diagnosed with breast cancer. And after a diagnosis, it's important to understand why you should be the CEO of your health. So welcome to Warriors Talk, Marquita Bass. Hey, Marquita.
Hi, Lady ReShell. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Marquita and I actually met in Washington, D.C. back in May. Her and I and a couple of other advocates kind of clicked and we hung out and we just said that we would stay connected. So I'm so glad you're here, Marquita.
Thank you again for having me. And I'm so proud of, the work that you're doing and all the positive vibes that you are sending to people. What you're doing is really awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, as well as the work that you're doing out there. It's really making a difference. And that's what the show is about today. I wanted everybody to see exactly what you're doing and to see how they can join your movement as well.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
You're welcome. So your breast cancer journey with triple negative breast cancer began in 2012. Can you just take us back for a moment and share what you were going through, what was going through your mind when you were diagnosed?
Yes, I can. And it's kind of interesting because every time I have to share my journey, I feel like it's happening now or it just happened. You know, the date May 22nd, 2012 will never leave my mind. And on May 22nd, 2012, I was at work. I received a phone call from my doctor, and I can hear her saying, Mrs. Bass, it's a cancer. And I immediately went silent over the phone. I think she thought I had hung up on the phone. I was just silent. And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't believe what the doctor is telling me. So she picked up on my anxiety and she said, we have an appointment for you to come into the office at 6 p.m. today. Can you make it? I said yes. And I guess you would think, why would she give me that diagnosis over the phone? A lot of doctors will tell you, come in, but she picked up on my anxiety or my willingness to receive information as soon as possible when she did the biopsy. So that's why she gave me the diagnosis over the phone. Rochelle, at the same time, I mean, the diagnosis was really earth shattering. It was like someone had, you know, hit me with some concrete bricks. And I want to add and share with the audience that at the same time, my favorite Aunt Addie, who was 55, I was 48, my aunt was 55, was dying from triple negative breast cancer. So when I received the diagnosis, that's immediately what went through my mind. Now, at the time, I didn't know I had triple negative breast cancer because typically, you have the initial biopsy, and that's where you determine or where they determine whether or not a tumor is cancerous. It wasn't until a week later when I went into the doctor's office again where I received the diagnosis of a triple negative breast cancer tumor. And I remember that experience like it was yesterday also. I was in the exam room with my niece. The doctor came in and she said, Mrs. Bass, your tumor is triple negative. At the time, my niece and I, we knew that our aunt was dying, so we did not look at each other. Otherwise, we would have become unglued. We got through the visit, and that is when I went into survivor mode. And by that, that is when I said, okay, this is scary. I am 48. I do not want to die. I'm going to get through this.
So, with the news that your aunt is dying from this horrible disease, it had to be very difficult for you to hear. So, how did her experience shape your approach to your own cancer journey and your ability to advocate for yourself?
Oh, wow. My Aunt Addie's experience definitely colored my experience and how I went about making decisions. And I'm really ashamed to admit this. Until my own diagnosis with triple negative breast cancer, I really didn't understand what my aunt was explaining to me. She told me, I have this aggressive type of breast cancer. It typically comes back in 2 years. And, there's a 5-year survival rate for women. And I heard my aunt. I was supportive, but it really didn't resonate. And that, I'm embarrassed to admit that, but it's true. And that is why I'm such an advocate. But her experience, a couple things that happened. My aunt just gave me information on what I should do. For example, she really encouraged me to find a breast surgeon. And I'm not saying that general surgeon cannot do a good job or whatever, but she said for breast cancer, you want a breast surgeon. That's the first thing that she encouraged me to do. More importantly, my aunt encouraged me to get a second opinion. Now, I was always the person who pretty much got different opinions, but she was like, no, you need to get your tumor tested again. And she encouraged me to get a second opinion. And she also encouraged me to ask a lot of questions and to just, make sure I understood everything the doctors were telling me. Now, that's easily said than done because, as you know, Rochelle, when you're in the doctor's office, I would hear information, but I'm not, I would hear the doctor talking, but, I don't know if I heard everything. But again, my aunt's experience, it colored my experience because she was dying from triple negative breast cancer. So consequently, I needed to know more about triple negative. And it encouraged me to do so much research that she didn't tell me this. I didn't know, Rochelle, that triple negative breast cancer is not one disease. And just for the audience, all breast cancer is not the same. 80%, probably 80 to 83% of breast cancer is what's called hormone positive. And typically, when you hear an article in the news or someone is talking about breast cancer, they're talking about hormone positive breast cancer. So, what does that mean? That means that your cancer feeds on female hormones. And more importantly, it means that there's a targeted treatment for hormone positive breast cancer. You have your tamoxifen, you have your aromatase inhibitors. There are tests that women can take in order to ascertain if they actually need chemo. That's awesome. I mean, that's a huge deal with this new breast cancer index test because women can't forego chemo and consequently, a lot of side effects. So that's hormone positive. The second type of breast cancer is HER2. And HER2 is a protein that's typically overexpressed in the tumor. And if there's an overexpression in the HER2 protein, your cancer is considered HER2. And more importantly, HER2 has a targeted treatment. There's Herceptin for HER2. That's those tumors are typically 5%, and that's great news for women who are HER2. So any tumor that's not hormone positive or HER2 is put into this triple negative bucket. So triple negative is really what the tumor is not as opposed to what it is. And I'm going to say that because there are different subtypes of triple negative, Rochelle. And studies show that there are 4 to 6 subtypes depending on the study, but more importantly, the subtypes respond to different chemo cocktails. And unless you have a BRCA mutation, early stage triple negative is pretty much treated as one disease. So it's the only, Rochelle, I'm going to say this again, it's the only type of breast cancer that does not have a targeted treatment or precision medicine for early stage disease. And that's unfortunate. Um, they have come out with new treatments, but we need targeted treatments for triple negative breast cancer. And that is why I do what I'm doing now, because I want to raise awareness. Uh, More importantly, because it's aggressive and Black women have a threefold, three. So that's what, 300% chance of being diagnosed with what type of breast cancer do you think? Triple negative. And, I advocate for all women, but that's astounding. That number is astounding to me. And that will keep me up at night. That's why I do what I'm doing.
I totally agree with you. I was diagnosed with the triple negative, and of course, they're gonna give you every treatment that's out there because they don't know, like you said, they don't have a targeted treatment. So they're gonna try everything to see and hope and pray that it does work and hopefully keeps it at bay from returning.
Yes.
It's sad because some women may be getting over treatment that don't really need it, and they walk away with all of these short-term side effects and also the long-term side effects that may not show up for years and years after you have had treatment.
I agree with you. And I want to add this because I don't want to sound like, doom and gloom. Most women survive triple negative breast cancer. I want the audience to hear that. However, too many women are not surviving. And I agree with your statement. because they really don't know, and they don't start out with knowing the subtype because we don't have precision medicine. It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall to see what sticks. And that's my opinion. A lot of people may not, agree with that, but I challenge you to tell me any different. Because how can you treat what you don't know is driving the tumor? How can you effectively do that? And it's been 12 years since I was diagnosed. And I don't think for early stage breast cancer, the treatments have changed that much. Now they're using immunotherapy, adding that to the chemo, but they're still treating it
Yes.
all as the same.
Yes.
You know, there's some other things, but that's unfortunate. And until I am a lifetime advocate, and I will talk about this until I'm dead because it's that important to me. It's that important for all women. And I want to share also, Rochelle, a lot of women don't realize how traumatic a breast cancer diagnosis is. I'm talking about any type of breast cancer, any type of cancer diagnosis. So, Rochelle, for 7 years, I was like Maya Angelou. I didn't talk about my diagnosis for 7 years unless it was on a need to know basis. People at work didn't know why I had been out. And if I met a lady and she mentioned she had breast cancer, I would say something, but I was quiet. So that was like trauma for me. For 7 years, I didn't talk about it. And now I can't shut up about it.
I was getting ready to say
But
what made that decision for you that impacted you to start sharing your story
mm,
with everybody else?
this is what happened. And okay, so I went to a breast cancer support group and I met a friend, and her name is Mary DeHay. And Mary and I would go to support groups, and we would go to support groups and we would go to seminars. And Mary was so feisty, and she and we did a lot of research. She had triple negative breast cancer. It was her second experience with breast cancer. The first time, Mary had hormone positive breast cancer years ago. And I think 11 years later, she ended up with triple negative. And Mary died. And I was devastated. And I'm going to tell you, I was probably even more devastated than by my aunt dying because my aunt's triple negative behaved the way it does for a lot of women. After 2 years of chemo, it comes back. It comes back with a vengeance, and the tumors are chemo resistant. And a lot of women don't make it to that 5-year milestone. So my aunt had explained that to us. So consequently, I was mentally prepared for my aunt to die. Mary was white, and white women typically do um, much better, you know. Um, and also, Mary had passed the 5-year milestone for triple negative. Consequently, her death was a shock. I was in shock. And when I went to visit Mary in the hospital, that's the last time I saw Mary alive. And as I was leaving the room, walking out, I can still hear Mary say, Marquita, you have to write about triple negative breast cancer and let the world know that it's not one disease. There are different subtypes, and we need, and this is what I'm not going to say the word what she used. She said, we need a effing target treatment because it's not right. And I turned around and said, okay. Then I ran out of the room because I didn't want her to see me just like lose it. So Mary is why I started talking about my experience. And Mary is why I wrote the book, Orange is the New Pink, My Battle with Triple Negative Breast Cancer. And I want to share that in the book, I talk about triple negative, but I also encourage women to think before they pink. Know your risk factors. It's not just about triple negative, it's about knowing. I encourage women to know their risk factors before a diagnosis.
What would some of those risk factors look like?
Oh my gosh. So, with the risk factors, you have what I consider factors that you can control, lifestyle factors. There are factors that you can control. Some of the factors were being overweight, not exercising, a lot of alcohol, smoking, not exercising. I'm trying to think of anything else, but those are factors that you can control, more like lifestyle factors. And then you have risk factors that you cannot control. For example, dense breast, Rochelle. If the audience doesn't listen to anything I say tonight, if you are a woman and you have dense breasts and you get that little letter after you have your mammogram that says, you have dense breasts, yada, 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 whatever, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to your doctor and kick, scream, have a tantrum, and demand an advanced screening because mammogram may not be the best screening tool if you have dense breasts. So that's another risk factor. And also genetics. They say genetics, maybe 5%, but um, the BRCA gene is one that we all talk about, but there are other breast cancer genes that they should test you for if you have a family history of breast cancer. Um, and I'm trying to think of other family history in age. They say age is also, but with age, I don't know about you, Rochelle, but most of the women I have met over the years have been less than 50 years old. What do you think about what's been
I
your
I
experience?
totally agree with that. They need to wipe that age out because so many younger women are being diagnosed. It's unbelievable.
It's how old were you when you were
I
diagnosed?
was 43.
Okay, I was 48, and I would say about 90% of the women that I meet were diagnosed less than 50 years old. So I don't know. I'm not saying age doesn't matter. It's not a factor, but the American Cancer Society recently published something that said that women under 50, the rate of cancer between 2019, no, but 2010 and 2019 is increasing by 1% per year. That was published by the American Cancer Society. Also, um, there are studies that are showing that our products, our skin products, our beauty products can um, may play a role. You have to be careful if you say cause, but may play a role in breast cancer. And what people don't realize, Dr. Christy Funk wrote a book. I love her book. It's called Breast. And she talks about the tumor environment. And when I say know your risk factors, you want to do things to make that tumor environment less susceptible to DNA change. So that includes all of the lifestyle factors that I talked about, diet. There are things that you can do to manage your tumor environment. And that is what I want to encourage women to consider because more and more younger women are getting diagnosed. And I don't know if we're really having this conversation about the younger women being diagnosed. I may be wrong. I'm not hearing the conversation enough. And I don't know if enough younger women are hearing the message. And I get it, man. I get it. When you're young, you're living your life, and breast cancer is not on your radar. I totally get it. But I think that's unfortunate, because it's a diagnosis that if you can avoid, you may want to consider that.
It definitely has nothing to do with age. I don't even know why they even put an age limit on it. You should, I mean, if you have breasts, then you should be, what do they call it, breast self-aware.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't
Love it.
matter what your age is. I think it sends out some type of false security that, oh, if you're younger, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to worry about it when you're 40, to get your
Mhm.
mammogram. So a lot of them probably be like, well, shoot, I don't have to worry about it. I'm not even 40 yet. So I don't even have to worry about, my breasts at this point because according to, the laws and statistics, 40 is the age that women are mostly or mainly being diagnosed.
I
40 and
agree.
beyond.
And Rochelle, you hit the nail on the head. The number one risk factor for breast cancer is having breasts. That's your number one risk factor. And not just for women, for men, although it's not as prevalent. Although I have a friend whose husband currently has breast cancer. But if you have breasts, you should be concerned about cancer, breast cancer.
I would say for anyone who has individuals in their family who has breast cancer, if breast cancer is in your family, then it's a concern. Even if it's just one person, it's a concern. That means you should be having a conversation with your doctor to let them know what age that person had the breast cancer, what type of treatment they had, are they still living, what's going on with them now, and then coming up with some type of plan, how they're going to cater to that particular issue around you coming in to see them yearly or whatever.
I totally agree with that. And also, as an advocate, I'm just kind of changing topics here. As an advocate, I'm trying to determine, how can I encourage the research community to really do a deeper dive into the different subtypes for triple negative breast cancer. Because until that happens, too many women are not going to survive. Although, again, most women do fine, too many women are not surviving triple negative breast cancer. And I don't know I don't know what's going to be required, um, for us, for the research community to validate. That's the word they use. What will it require for them to validate the subtypes and then to consequently come up with precision medicine? Man, I mean, with technology now and with the um, genomics projects and everything, I just don't understand why we can't make more progress in this area. I don't understand it.
I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like if enough of maybe the different races was diagnosed with this type of cancer, then maybe it would be an urgency of looking into researching different treatments. Maybe because it affect a lot of majority African Americans, then it's really not an urgency because it's said that we don't even participate in the clinical trials, enough of us anyway. So if they were trying to do or come up with a medicine to treat us, some type of targeted medicine, we're not even there for them to test us. So it wouldn't work on us anyway because we're not even, in the drawing room when they're coming up with the targeted treatment.
You touched on two very important points. I'm going to start out with the um, clinical trials. Um, there's one organization that's pushing, when we trial, trying to get more women of color to participate in clinical trials. A whole lot of money, like millions, have been thrown toward that campaign and those efforts. When we trial, that's great. This is one of the challenges I have with that. I'm not saying we should not participate in clinical trials. That's not what I'm saying. It's not the takeaway here. However, the trials have to be designed properly also, because I think that the clinical trials for early stage triple negative breast cancer, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, I know, but I feel like the trials are fundamentally flawed. And this is why I say that. Because if the trial is not trying to look at the different subtypes, or if that's not the purpose, or if before the trial someone has not looked at the subtypes before it gets to the clinical trial stage, it's flawed. Because again, as I said earlier, you can't cure or treat what you don't understand. So that's my comment on clinical trials. Again, I'm not saying they're not important, but I think the clinical trials for early stage triple negative breast cancer are flawed. Um, to talk about your comment about triple negative aggressive breast cancer mostly affecting women of color, I agree with you. But this is something that's not understood. More white women get triple negative breast cancer because of the proportion, the number of white
Yes.
women in the United States.
The
So it's
incidence higher.
affecting white women.
Yes.
And I have a lot of friends who have been affected by triple negative breast cancer. But to your point, it disproportionately affect African American women. And all we hear about, it affects African American women, you know, it's killing African American women, but it's also killing white women, but not at the same proportion as far as um, our presence in the population. And I think that's the disparity. That's
Yes.
it
Yes.
disproportionately affects African American women, and maybe the emphasis or the concern or the money may not be placed there.
Yes.
And that's if I pray to God that I'm wrong, that you are wrong. That's my prayer. But just tell me what else makes sense. And then we can dispel that myth.
Right.
We can dispel that. But
Right.
until I can hear about something else, I don't know. And maybe because I've heard this theory, maybe because it only makes up, 10 to 15% or 15 to 25% of the tumors. It depends on your study, maybe because of the percentage. But guess what? HER2 was like 5%, and they came up with the targeted treatment for HER2. So I mean, man, we could talk about this. I don't know, but what I know as a fact is we need precision medicine and a targeted treatment for early stage breast cancer. That you can't debate.
Exactly.
You can't
Yes.
debate that.
Yes. Dawn said she was diagnosed at 39, and her sister made her, I guess, go get tested due to the history. So
I'm sorry.
she listened to because of her sister's history, she ended up going to get tested at
Okay.
39. And then Angela says she taught her son how to examine his breast, his pectoral area, because she is a breast cancer survivor, and her daughter already knows that she has to do the breast exams. We have to tell our children. I tell my daughters 10 years before my diagnosed age, which was 43, so at 33, or even just examining your breast because you have breasts. You don't
Right.
have to wait for that 10 years before you can start earlier. And if you know something is different, then you can address it. So you don't, yeah, they say use that 10-year mark from the time that the person in your family was diagnosed by me being their parent, but you can start earlier than that. And I know that maybe a lot of people kind of shy away from that because it could be a lot of false positives and maybe have you undergoing unnecessary tests and stress from that. But you still should know the look and the feel of what your normal breast is like.
I totally agree with you. The earlier, the better. With younger girls, younger boys, I agree with you 100%. But also, Rochelle, what do you think about the role that diet could play? Because, food is an endocrine disruptor. And by that, certain foods may affect how your estrogen levels. And do you think that's a conversation we need to have? Parents need to have with their kids and maybe start maybe moving to more of a plant-based diet for their kids and trying to avoid foods that disrupt their estrogen levels and everything. Is there a place for those type of conversations?
There's always a place for those type of conversation. Medicine is food, period.
Yeah.
What you
Mhm.
put in your body is going to be what you get out. So if you're feeding your body healthy stuff that helps improve your immune system, your gut, um, then your body is going to react to that.
Yeah.
So in my household, I'm vegan, so I don't have. They very rarely have meat in my house. I may cook
Okay.
chicken for them like every 6 months. So if they're getting the meat, it's not in my household. So they're learning to eat without it. They're learning to eat not depending on that type of protein and choose healthier options. There are healthier options that you can choose, and they feel the effects of their body, of their skin, just even having more energy. So, yeah, it starts with whatever you're putting in your body. It could heal you or it could kill you.
I agree with you 100%. Now, as a vegan, this may be a little off topic. Are you ever concerned about getting adequate protein? Or do you
That's a
take certain
daily, not to
No, go
interrupt, I'm
ahead.
sorry. That's a daily concern of mine.
Okay.
I don't let it take away from me still eating that way, but that is a daily concern. And often I don't even get the amount of protein that I should be getting, because when you think about the amount that you need, for me, it feels like a lot. I'm like, I can't even eat all of that in one setting because of what I'm eating. Now if you're eating meat, you could eat a steak and you got the protein that you need for that one meal. So I have to be clever. I have to be intentional about my meals when I do eat to make sure that I get them.
Okay. Yes, yeah, that's something people talk about a lot, getting adequate protein. So do you supplement with vitamin B6 or no,
No,
12, vitamin
I no.
B12?
I take no supplements. I
Okay,
don't take
awesome.
after chemo, I don't take any medicine. I don't take anything. I try to get everything through my foods. Like I do black seed oil, that's one thing that I do. I do black seed
Okay.
oil. It gives me a lot. And sometimes I do what is that? Not sour sap. It's called, oh, Dr. Sebi always pushes it. Not seaweed, but what is it called? What is
Sea
the
moss? Is it sea moss?
Yes, sometimes I'll do
Oh,
sea moss.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah, so between black seed oil and sea moss, those are the things that I do. And I also do my elderberry gummies, like things that are kind of natural, but not
Mhm.
in the pill form.
Okay, awesome. So what I hear you saying is you are really keenly focused on your immune system because as we
Yes.
learned when we met, um, we didn't go to Project Lead together,
No, we didn't. No.
but okay, so Project Lead is a training program for the audience that's put on by the National Breast Cancer, um, is it
Coalition.
Coalition?
Coalition.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
And Rochelle and I went to San Diego for 1 week. We went at different times,
Mhm.
but we learned everything there is to learn about the immune system, tumors, how a tumor is created, and the one of the messages was your immune system is your number one defense against illness. So, Rochelle, a lot of what I've heard you say is that you're really keenly focused on your immune system, and that's great. And I'm trying to do the same thing. I think it's another topic we may want to bring up is stress and the role that stress plays on your immune system. And I know for me, and I'm not saying this caused my cancer, whatever, but I know I was under chronic stress before my diagnosis. I just chronic stress. And I just want to encourage the audience to manage your stress as much as you can, because I think, they say what high blood pressure is a silent killer, some other things are silent killers. I want to
Yes.
add one more.
Yes.
St- Chronic stress is a silent killer. So whatever you can do to eliminate, manage, control stress, I want to encourage you to do that.
Yes. And so what I totally agree with you because I had a stressful maybe 2 years before my diagnosis. And we know cancer doesn't start overnight. Sometimes it's in there 10 years before it rear its ugly head. But I was in a stressful situation before I was diagnosed. So I totally agree with you. But I think what I want to do, Marquita, is have you to come back because we got to wrap this up. And I want to have you to come back the last show this Monday. So let me know. You can let me know off air if you are available so that we can further educating individuals on not just the breast cancers, but the risk factors and what you can do to take control of things that you can, because there are things that we can't control, but then there are things that you can. And if you're doing everything that you can, you still may get a diagnosis, but I get a sense of peace knowing that I'm doing what I can to not get that diagnosis. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. I'm always here, and
mhm,
I like the idea of just talking about risk factors and things that we can do to control, our risk factors. I think that's a great idea.
yes. I want to read this last comment and then I want you to give us some words of wisdom. Dawn says she went vegetarian for 1 year and she was constantly sick, and her doctor made her actually reintroduce her to chicken and turkey because they didn't know they should have sent you to a nutritionist so they can teach you how to eat to get all of the things that you need through your food. And you may have to supplement. Some people do have to supplement, but they should have been able to send you to somebody to talk to about food because
I
doctors
agree.
doctors only get one course on nutrition. They don't get in depth on nutrition. So that wasn't fair to you. So, Marquita, again, we're going to have you to come back because I feel like in the book you have so much information. It's a good book, hard to put down. I really enjoyed it. I want you to
Thank
come
you.
back. For right now, can you give us some words of wisdom about orange is the new pink and how people can stay connected to you as well as get that book?
Oh, oh, absolutely. My word of wisdom is you are the CEO of your health. And I'm not talking about, just cancer in general. And I want people to believe that. And I look for a doctor who will look at me not just as a patient or as a disease, but as a person. And if try to find that in a doctor, and do not hesitate to fire a doctor. And you can
Absolutely.
reach, do not hesitate to fire a doctor if you don't feel like the doctor cares about you as a whole person. I had an oncologist, Dr. Daniel Dubowski, and he taught me what it meant to be treated like a whole person. So you are the CEO of your health.
And how can they get that book?
My book, you can go to my website, marquitabass.com, or you can follow me on Facebook. I think it's Orange is the New Pink Atlanta, ATL, and also on Instagram, Miss Marquita Bass.
And I will
And
make
so,
sure
Listening
I
to
will make
this
sure I
week's
put all of your
edition
information
of
in the
Warriors
comments
Talk with
so
Lady
okay,
Rochelle.
you guys can
To
get
find
that.
out more
You guys
about
join me
Warriors
next Monday
Talk,
right here on Intellectual
follow
Radio at
at
6 p.m.
Warriors
As
Talk
always, thank you for
one
tuning in to
on all
Warriors Talk
social
with
media
author and founder
outlets
Lady Rochelle, where we are
and
changing
Warriors
lives
Talk with Lady
one warrior
Rochelle
at a
on
time.
YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on IntellectualRadio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady Rochelle, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.